She became a career prosecutor while he became a career criminal. With 34 felonies, 2 impeachments, and 1 porn star to prove it. Kamala Harris has a resume. Donald Trump has a rap sheet. She presides over the Senate while he keeps our national secrets next to his thinking chair.
Texas Congresswoman JASMINE CROCKETT drew a strong contrast between the two people currently running for president when she addressed the Democratic National Convention last week. Freshman House member has been a prominent voice among congressional Democrats, not only for the Democratic presidential ticket, but also in the Oversight and Accountability Committee, where she has confronted Republicans over their bullying tactics and the ex-president's retention of classified documents. And joining me now is Congresswoman JASMINE CROCKETT, Democrat of Texas, who as of today is the new national co-chair of the Harris-Walz campaign.
So she got a job. So everybody throw some flames in the chat for her. Shout out to her. She got a job. You know what I'm saying? Now, we're going to talk about something that's very specific in this video. All right. I want you guys to wait for it. Shout out to Deneen. What's good with it, Deneen? Good to see you.
Congratulations on that, Congresswoman. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I want to first start just to get your response to the sound we played of J.D. Vance in the previous segment, where he basically says he's going after Randy Weingarten, and he basically says, like, if you don't have your own children, like, stay the hell away from ours. You shouldn't be a teacher involved in education if you don't have your own children. And this is now a whole body of stuff where he really seems to have it out for folks that don't have kids. I'm just curious your reaction to that.
The guy is a weirdo.
So now, do you immediately off rip, do you notice the repeated talking point? We're using the weirdo talking point. Now, again, as far as J.D. Vance goes, you know, him and his whole kid jihad thing, everybody may not have kids. That's just something that he's just going to have to deal with. You know what I'm saying? What he's doing is another form of private part policing. That also goes into race simping. Right. So, again, what we basically have here is not the Democrats getting out of anything. We have both parties being the same shameful clown show. If you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. Shout out to Win Loser Rug. Facts. Win Loser Rug said, you said that months ago when she was caping for Biden. She was auditioning. Facts, bro. And look, she got a job. Shout out to her. Everybody throw some ticker tape in the chat for her. She got a job. Yay. That's what she was trying to do. She did it. Yay. You know what I'm saying?
Really quite simple, you know, and I thought that it was a really good point that was raised about those sisters that teach kids like me, because I actually went to Catholic middle school. So I absolutely know what that's like. And so I am curious to know what he thinks. But we also know that they have been pushing the Project 2025 agenda. And
so there we go. Another talking point. We got 2 constructed talking points. Weird. Right? Shout out to Greets. What's good with you, bro? We got 2 constructed, repeated, lowbrow, low IQ, no information behind them talking points. Weirdo, which is opinionated, emotional, and ineffective. And Project 2025, which, if we're looking at Project 2025 and that's so bad, and the guy is actually as bad as they claim that he is, we really need to be looking at, what is it called? Agenda 47 or whatever, right? His actual agenda. And they haven't told anybody to put the focus on that one time. So again, they're controlling and diverting your attention to places where it doesn't need to be. Ineffective governance, ineffective politics before any of these people even get into office. Right? So we have 2 constructed talking points. What are these constructed talking points based in? Name calling. And that's it.
And a lot of that agenda kind of has their own definition of what Christian
name calling. And that's important because name calling is part of monolith enforcement. Name calling is something that works on shame sensitive people. Shout out to my man, Keep It 100. Shame sensitive people. This is why you have Joy Reid pointing at everybody, saying the stuff that she says. This is why you have Charlemagne the God on his slurred and barely intelligible rants. They attempt to use shame sensitivity to control and quell people while sitting there saying that we're not a monolith, while not allowing anybody any standard deviation or variance to be able to have any type of flexibility or autonomy. Also, pay attention to who's paying them to do this. Okay?
Christianity looks like, and what Christian families look like, and what we all should be doing. And I don't think that that's inclusive of Catholicism and the Muslim folk, as well as atheist folk, everybody else, even though we supposedly have this thing called freedom of religion in this country.
So the Harris Walls campaign, of which you are now a national campaign co-chair, they are in Georgia.
She's now a national co-chair. All right, so everybody write that down. She's now the national co-chair of the Harris Wall campaign. How much of a raise from what she was doing before do you all think that she got in percentage?
Georgia looked in rough shape. We've got some new swing state polling out today. Again, no one poll is determinative, but it shows narrowing gaps and in fact a lead in some of these swing states. Harris up in Arizona, up by 2 points in Georgia, down 1 in North Carolina, up in Nevada, again, all within the margin of error. They're doing a swing through what's called the Black Belt in Georgia. In
the Black Belt, never heard that before. A little bit of identity politics, a little bit of monolithism, right? The Black Belt. That's interesting. Now, they're not talking about Bruce Lee, are they? Which is interesting. That's neither here nor there. The Black Belt. How many people have heard this referred to as the quote unquote Black Belt? Never heard that before. But at the same time, luckily for me, I'm one of those humble people who have never claimed to have heard of everything, because I haven't. You know what I'm saying?
By 2 points in Georgia, down 1 in North Carolina, up in Nevada, again, all within the margin of error. They're doing a swing through what's called the Black Belt in Georgia, in areas that are both rural and predominantly African American. I'm just curious.
Both rural, quote unquote, and predominantly African American. Okay. And he's curious. What's he curious about? Let's find out. Because we're
your
curious.
Thoughts about that, which I haven't seen a candidate do in a while, I gotta say.
So if we're not a monolith, then what it should be is that the answer should be Black people are diverse. Black people have a diverse school of thought. There are some Black people who are traditionally more conservative. There are some Black people who are traditionally more Democrat. It's very interesting. We don't know how it's going to go. The only thing that we can do is provide a good case to the voters and let them decide on who will be the best candidate. But we think with what we have to offer our voters that it will be Kamala Harris. That would be the correct answer, wouldn't it? If that would be the correct answer, throw some flames in the chat. If that's not the correct answer and I'm wrong, well, then by all means, correct me. But if you do correct me, please try to correct me not using any of my dope, swaggy, you know what I'm saying, drip-tastic intellectual property. So if we're not a monolith, then for the most part, it should be about convincing and earning, right? Because there's an element of uncertainty, right? You don't know exactly what's on somebody's mind. So you have to convince them. You have to give them facts. You have to give them data. You have to give them a cost benefit analysis. You have to show them a graph. You have to let them watch a video. You have to share some social media posts. You have to compare time frames, compare candidates, right? You have to do some actual work. Something that these people are not accustomed to, right? Let's see if that's what she says. Let's see if she's worth that raise that she got.
I'm very excited about it. That is exactly what we're going to get out of this team. We're going to get them doing the things that are out of the box because they understand what the stakes look like. But here's the reality. We are just not having the conversations with rural America that we should be having, because we do have an agenda that is actually about bettering their lives. When we look at the broadband access that's been brought to rural America, that was brought by Democrats in the House and the Senate. And
how many of you guys asked for broadband? I don't usually, talk to Democrats when I am looking for broadband. Usually what I do is call Spectrum or AT&T. Call me crazy.
in a Democratic administration. That means better access to healthcare. That means better access to jobs. That means better access to education. A lot of times, as someone who lived in East Texas, I know that we are limited to whichever plant is set up in that community. And if that plant closes, then that potentially decimates all of your economic opportunities.
Nothing about business ownership or wealth building. Interesting. Let me ask you guys this question. Any of what she's listed, is that anything that you all have asked for? Anything that you all think is a necessity? Anything that you do or don't have? Where did they get this information from? What kind of poll did they take? Did they hire a research agency? Do we know the research method? Just curious.
The general feeling in the race right now is a kind of consolidation of the Democratic base, a campaign that's been obviously transformed by the departure of the president, the vice president accepting the nomination. What keeps you up at night? Where is your head as you're looking at the next 68, 69 days?
Yeah, I think the only regret will be that I didn't give it my all. Everyone that I talk to, I tell them we've got to run through the tape. We can't take anything for granted. We can't look at these polls and get excited. We can't look at how many people are showing up to the rallies and get excited, because ultimately the only poll that matters is the poll on election day. And so I don't want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now.
This is important. I want you guys to pay very close attention, and I'm gonna let her run through what she's gonna say here, and then we're gonna go back to it, because it'll sound familiar because we actually talked about this story. So pay very close attention right here. And shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate you guys. If you all haven't smashed the like button yet, we got 21 people watching and we got 19 likes. Let's try to get the likes up to 30.
Want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now going in and they are perpetrating raids on elderly women.
Who's she talking about? Because we actually talked about that elderly woman. Who is she talking about? Now that's interesting, because when she brings this up, shout out to Late Not Last. What's good up? What's good with it, bro? When she brings this up, this is interesting, right? Because my question is, okay, now that woman that she's talking about, that happened to, she's got a whole organization called LULAC that's actually handling that legal situation. And you know what else they're handling? They're handling any type of situation that the group of people that woman is a part of. And you know what that organization doesn't say? That organization doesn't say black and brown. So here's my question. What's this? What is this? Now, let's verify, right? Because remember, we do misinformation. They get radio hosts that never have any information posted up online when they're talking about their content. And mind you, when we do our content, we always have the associated article or the associated data right there with us, because the technology that we use allows us to have screen share. But somehow we're just podcasters, despite the fact that they pay podcasters that are contracted by iHeartRadio to come and literally do the same thing that we do, except for it's paid and scripted, and we are not, right? Who is she talking about right here? She's talking about that lady from Texas that was, quote unquote, allegedly targeted in that, quote unquote, raid of alleged, quote unquote, illegal voters by the Texas Supreme Court, by the Texas Attorney General, right? And that's being taken care of, and she's being represented by, quote unquote, LULAC. Now, I'm curious, why would you give a shameless plug right there? What's the point? Fear tactic? How does that help the message? Let me ask you guys this. That situation that happened with that elderly woman with LULAC, could that happen with you? Could somebody take your ballot and say, you're not a legal citizen and you can't vote? No one's going to do that to anybody in here. If you guys haven't watched the videos that I've done about, quote unquote, voter rights, because remember, there's a difference between, quote unquote, voter rights versus attempted voter suppression. Those are two different things. And manipulative, cowardly, pseudo intellectual people will try to conflate those two things to try to sow confusion in people so that they can continue to control things, because that's what people do, is try to control things instead of allowing people autonomy. But make sure you guys pay attention to that, because this person that she's talking about, that person is taken care of. Not only is that person taken care of, that person is taken care of by the oldest Latino civil rights organization in the United States, LULAC. Now, why wouldn't she come out and say all of that?
Because ultimately, the only poll that matters is the poll on election day. And so I don't want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now going in and they are perpetrating raids on elderly women that are simply just trying to do their part for democracy. We are facing some really ugly and negative forces that are doing
democracy. Is that warm and fuzzy wuzzy kind of democracy that's just so good for you and so warm and loving that it hurts.
Everything that they can to hold on to power. And so for me, this
is that kind of democracy that got Robert F. Kennedy off of the ballot. That same type of democracy that got Robert F. Kennedy censored by Facebook. That same type of democracy that put pressure on Facebook to shut certain people up. That's democracy. That's these guys. Is that correct? If that's correct, give me a thumbs up. If that's incorrect, give me a thumbs down. It's the warm, fuzzy democracy with sharp teeth.
It laid back, and as Tim Wall says, goes to sleep. He says we can sleep when we dead. I tell people I'm the walking dead right now because I'm not getting sleep, but it's just that important.
We reported on the beginning of the show about the altercation that happened at Arlington National Cemetery, where the ex-president brought a campaign videographer, turned his appearance there into a campaign spot that was uploaded on their social media feeds. A worker there, apparently, again, this is the best we can sort of get from the reporting from NPR and our own reporting and what we've heard, tried to stop them. They plowed through that. They're kind of doubling down on it, and they're saying that the worker at Arlington National Cemetery was having a mental
fact. Shout out to DeAndre. It's that kind of democracy that got Kamala Harris the presidential nomination. It's that kind of democracy that, trust us, we know better than you what's good for you. Just trust us. And listening to us is your freedom. It's that type of democracy. It's that type of democracy. Here's my question. Is that democracy? Or is that monolithism enforcement?
Like a mental health issue and sort of attacking that person? I'm curious your reaction.
I mean, it's the same old games with these guys, you know, like they don't abide by norms. They don't abide by the law. And honestly, anyone that tries to enforce any rules upon them, they literally just steamroll them and they act as if they were all right.
Like how the Democrats did RFK? Like putting Tulsi Gabbard on a terror watch list? That, like that? We gotta have the hurt your feelings snipers on patrol to give people headshots in case somebody gets their feelings hurt. That type of thing. That's what we got.
It's really unfortunate, especially when you have someone that is running to be the most powerful person in the world, to know that they literally just have no appreciation for basic norms. This is not the party of law and order. I think that we know that. That may have been who the Republicans used to be, but MAGA definitely is not that.